Welcome to The Difference Makers, a Paladin security podcast. We'll take you inside the world of security and share firsthand expertise from our industry professionals. Join us as we dive into everything security and explore the journeys of those who go above and beyond to make our world a safer and friendlier place.
Hi everyone, and welcome to The Difference Makers. I'm Christina Haydanis, and today I'll be chatting with Nancy Tavares, Director of People and Culture for Paladin Security. Nancy joined Paladin in 2021, where her role encompasses all aspects of HR with a strategic emphasis on talent acquisition and labor relations. Her accomplishments in this area have recently gotten her noticed, as she was named a top 50 woman leader in Toronto for 2023. Here to tell us more about her journey is Nancy Tavares. Welcome, Nancy.
Hi, Christina.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to dive into your journey. So tell me a little bit about first how you got into people and culture or HR. Like, what drew you into that industry?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on this podcast. So I took a bit of a windy road into HR, actually. So I first started in the fitness industry. So I actually graduated from Toronto Dance Theatre and, thought fitness would be a great way to supplement my career while I was an aspiring, artist, professional, that sort of thing. So I, started working actually for Good Life Fitness Clubs and more of the fitness side of things, the background. So teaching fitness classes and things like that. And it was a great supplement for some time. And throughout the fitness industry, I continued to progress into more management roles. So I oversaw a few locations as a general manager and, did well at that, which led me into human resources. So, while I was a general manager of a Good Life Fitness Club, I was nominated for, Manager of the Year, that sort of thing. And they said, hey, we're gearing up to expand. Can you help us train new general managers? So a part of my role was traveling around Canada. So I trained general managers on, all of their responsibilities, hiring, firing, budgeting, financials, P&L, all those sorts of things. And there's a lot more departments now than what they had in the past. So you were, very much sort of a one-person show operations at that time. And I found that I really loved training the general managers. I thought, it was such a positive environment. Everybody's, keen and new and wanting to do a good job. And I felt like I could really help people in their role. So I actually went back to school and I did a human resources diploma. To help me get more HR credentials so that I could expand my scope as well as my responsibility within the HR field. So I did my diploma of HR, while working full time and then kind of progressed from there. So I spent over a decade specifically in learning and development, including building learning and development functions from scratch. And then, expanded my scope from there to cover more talent acquisition, employee engagement, and now even labor relations with Paladin Security. So it's been a bit of a windy road, not one linear line. And HR is where it's at. So I continue to learn and grow in the HR field. I think it's really important to keep learning. So since I recently finished a master's in human resources. So
wow, congratulations.
Really important to keep learning. Yeah. So that's been a bit of my journey.
So what is it that you really love about it? Because obviously, starting in fitness and then moving your way up through that, through management and then into HR, it seems like you kind of had those experiences and then realized that, it was a passion of yours. So what is it about it that you really love that makes you, excited to come to work and do that?
Yeah. And I love that question because I think it's so important. We spend as adults, a lot of us spend time working, right? If you think about, the amount of time that's invested in that throughout, our entire lifetime, I think it's really important to do something that you like and something that you care about. So just the fact that, so many people spend so many hours at work, having the opportunity to, make a positive impact on people when they're working and spending the majority of their day at work, being the department that kind of I feel responsible for a large part of that experience at work. That's something that really attracted me to it. And I do feel, people have, at heart, good intent, right? So, what are some ways that, we can help people do their jobs really well, provide them with the tools, which is a big ask, but, we can continue to, work away, come up with initiatives and projects that will gradually continue to move that dial and, make it a great place to work, so to speak.
For sure. Now, as mentioned, you were named a top 50 women leader in Toronto for 2023. Did that come to a surprise to you? And where did you learn your leadership skills from? I mean, was it always something that you naturally had, or did you learn them along the way as you kind of progressed through the industry?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's something that's, always continuing to grow. It's never ending. And yes, it was completely a surprise. I kind of joked. I sent the email to my husband and I said, does this look like spam? Because I, hadn't heard about it before. So after I did my research, I'm like, oh, it looks like a real thing. And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool, pretty exciting. So it was absolutely a surprise to me. And, I've had some great leaders along the way. And, still continuing to learn and grow myself. So kind of taking that in wherever I can.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So as a successful female leader, what obstacles or challenges have you encountered in the workforce along the way? And how did you navigate them?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's always, a number of challenges and obstacles that people are going to face. And a few things that I think will help with that is, starting off with a bit of an open mind, right? Sort of taking in all the information, after all the time I spent in learning and development, almost doing that initial needs assessment. So, sort of sussing things out, figuring out where they are, keeping an open mind to all of that. And then it's really important when you're dealing with obstacles and challenges that you really understand the business, right? So if you're new to that, that's a cool thing. Another cool thing about HR that I'm really passionate about is HR is transferable, amongst so many industries. And I've been lucky and fortunate to work for a number of different industries and just see, some of those skills be able to transfer to, because at the end of the day, people are people, right? I think starting with an open mind, really making sure that you understand the business if you haven't always worked within that industry, and being relentless about, getting the information that you need to know to understand that business will really help out. And then once you have that understanding of the business, really thinking about, okay, if you're a leader, as you mentioned, my portfolio or my team, let's be really intentional about what projects and what initiatives we're going to take on so that we can make sure that our team, our department, our area is really, truly impactful, right? So if you can, keep an open mind, understand the business, then be intentional about what initiatives, what projects you take on, that will help you set yourself up to prioritize how to overcome some of those challenges and some of those tasks. One thing I sort of wanted to make a note of, in your question here, is going into newly created roles is something that I really enjoy, because you get to kind of create the playbook, right? It's a new position. You get to set the boundaries. You can contribute and help to set the scope. That's something that I quite enjoy. It's not for everybody, but something to be mindful of with women is what are those boundaries of the scope of the role that you're about to perform, right? So, traditionally and sometimes women may tend to get asked to play sometimes more of a supportive role, helping out with things here and there, which is totally fine. But I think for ourselves and organizations in general can be mindful of making sure that the support functions are spread out amongst the entire team and that they don't get allocated to, the same people. A real tangible example or tip that I might give to people is you get asked to, perform a support function for, birthday cakes for birthday celebrations for the month. I'd love to get the cakes this month, and next month, maybe, someone else on the team can have a turn at that, right? Or we can rotate that responsibility, because I do think it's important to establish what are the real true contributions that are impactful to the business and ultimately the bottom line.
Yeah, that last point you made too is such a good point, because, obviously women offer up a lot quicker. like, why can't someone else do it next time? You're right. Like, just pointing that out. And I think that's a good point for females to consider, especially young females that are like new into the industry as well. And you were talking about changing industries or coming into the industry and really getting to know it. And, I was in the similar situation as you, that I came from a TV background into security and had to learn all about security. And I'm still learning all about security every day that I'm working for Paladin. How did you find that you were able to kind of pick it up quickly and understand the business? Because it is very different from other businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I think, if you're fortunate to land with a team or an organization where your onboarding is amazing and, you have a 30, 60, 90-day plan, like that is awesome. But we also can't rely on that, right? So in order to grow in our careers and move into those leadership positions, you really gotta, get out there yourself and really seek out those opportunities and seek out those conversations, right? So, if there's different areas or different departments that you haven't connected with yet, reach out, send an invite. Don't wait for everything to sort of be handed to you or planned out for you. You really kind of got to go after it. And, something that I say to my team is be relentless about, what you need to get your job done, right? Because ultimately, right, within our function, we are responsible. So, if you need something from somebody, and you're having a hard time getting it, find another way. Don't just try once, try multiple times, multiple ways of communication, and escalate it if needed, right? So, really being proactive and going out there, connecting with people in the different areas to help you understand the business and asking questions is important, that you're pushing for that to continue to learn.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because a lot of times too, people's managers, or in your case, director, like they don't necessarily push their employees in that way, and to kind of just say it's okay to be relentless. And especially if you're a female, like, you don't want to necessarily be like that, or it might not be in your comfort zone. And so to be able to hear that and, be encouraged by your manager, then it can make a huge difference in someone's career. So saying that, you have talked to me a lot about like supporting and mentoring women and how there is a difference. It seems like you are, well, I know that you are passionate about both of those. Tell me a little bit more about what the differences between the two are in the workplace.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, some of the key themes that we use around this is, mentoring and sponsoring would be another thing that people refer to, right? So, with mentoring may be a little bit more formal. I find that organizations are getting, much better with this over time than in the past. I talk to, young professional nows who are in a 5-year mentoring or leadership plan, which is amazing. And in my experience, those sorts of opportunities from the organization didn't exist as much. I'm not saying they weren't there at all, but just in my experience, I hadn't had a lot of those, formal structures within the organization to kind of set people on that path. So with mentorship, that could be, a little bit more formal, something that the organization can provide. It also could be a little bit, less formal as well. And then with sponsorship, so the difference with sponsorship is, you have senior level people in the organization speaking about, other professionals that are doing a great job, maybe when they're not around, right, in front of other senior executives. They're sponsoring, promoting that person. They're almost like an advocate for that person, right, and the good work that they're doing. So we need to have a bit of a balance for both. And again, I encourage people, if there isn't something formal in place, to seek it out for yourself, right? So there's sort of like, 3 pillars of responsibility here, right? So that the organization has a responsibility to have some sort of, leadership framework in place. The person's manager has like a development responsibility to their team, right? If you're a people leader, but then the self too, right, is responsible for reaching out, continuing to learn. So if there isn't a mentor and there's, a senior person that you can think of that, has strong skill sets that you think you could learn from. Ask them if they wouldn't mind, having a 30-minute chat with you once a month, that sort of thing. And kind of, again, it's all about kind of going out there and getting it yourself a little bit if you don't have it. So, there's those three areas, but it's very, very vast. So you have to sort of, I think, not be shy in some cases, right?
Yeah. And that could be the case for, newer, younger employees, right? Especially coming into, a male-dominated industry like security. This could obviously translate to any industry, but since, we're talking about security, I wanted to ask you a little bit about it being more so male-dominated. I mean, that is changing over the years. But in your experience, what are some effective strategies to promote, gender diversity and equal opportunities for women in traditionally male-dominated industries?
Yeah, great question. And I think the sponsorship piece is really key here. So again, building those connections, reaching out, building your network so that, you are on people's minds, that sort of thing will be helpful. And then I think, for the broader organization to be kind of mindful of that and identifying, okay, who might some of our future leaders be, providing opportunities, stretch assignments for those people, so on and so forth. Because when we look at industries that may be dominated in a particular one area or another, what we can find is within the organization that's a little bit systemic. Right. So there's things like you might not notice, right, if you're aware of it, or there's natural tendencies or so on and so forth. So, having the awareness sort of first and foremost will sort of help to overcome those types of things.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So do you have any advice for young women who aspire to be leaders in their respective fields? Doesn't matter, what department or area they're in, but they may be facing some kind of barriers or self-doubt along the way?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. So in terms of advice, I think what I'd like to focus on is I think it's great to start with a solid foundation, right? So, really knowing your stuff. If you're aspiring to be a leader, becoming a subject matter expert sort of in whatever area that is that you aspire to be a leader in. So knowing the stuff for your role and your position is going to be really important. And you can do that through traditional sources like education and courses, but then also reaching out to other people who have the type of role or leadership job that you're looking to get into, finding out what their career path looked like, what worked for them, and then you can kind of work back from that and craft a bit of your own development journey along the way as well. And I think, you had asked, for young people aspiring, but I think it's important to still keep doing it now, right? So this is something that, I still do now. For example, I was at a conference in Chicago earlier on this year, and there was a really great chief people officer that did a presentation on HR metrics, and he actually had some numbers that I hadn't seen before. And I certainly do my very best to stay up to date in this area. So I thought it was really neat, some of the concepts that he presented. So I just sent him a note on LinkedIn, and I said, hey, can we connect for a coffee chat? I enjoyed your presentation. And he responded right away. And, we had a quick connect. So I think doing things like that. And, when I get messages on LinkedIn, people wanting to kind of connect with me and just, learn a little bit more about myself or ask any advice, I always will take people up on that. Right. So, I think continuing to reach out within your workplace, but not limiting yourself to your workplace as well. Reaching out to your network and outside of your network can help you with learning. And then you kind of mentioned self-doubt as well. And that's something that does tend to be a challenge. But I think if you work towards building yourself a strong foundation, that will help with confidence, right? So, the more knowledge you have, the more confidence that can lead to and help you be a little bit more confident and assertive, especially when you need to be within your role and within your career as well.
So where would you say people should start if, say, they, are facing challenges like having maybe 2 jobs or being a mom too and having to deal with their kids and all this other kind of stuff, but they still want to gain that leadership experience and rock it at work? Like, where would you say would be the place to start? Or even, like you said, if you're midway through your career, like what would the number one suggestion be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly today, people's lives are very, very busy, right? That people have a lot of things on the go. People wear a lot of hats. And at the end of the day, we all have 24 hours in a day, right? That is something that we all have that is equal, right? So it really is truly about prioritizing what your priorities are, right? So you have to look at, okay, if something is going to take X amount of effort and this is the reward, you have to ask yourself, am I really willing to put out X amount of effort for this reward, right? Because sometimes, when people hesitate to start something, it's because perhaps they're not willing to put out effort level X right now because the reward isn't worth it for them. And that's okay, right? So it's truly about assessing and then prioritizing all of your life's priorities, right? And coming up with what are my priorities and what is the amount of effort in order for me to get to that reward. And then prioritizing those key things for yourself, right? Because whether it's learning, networking, whatever, through technology, all of those things are more accessible than they ever were in the past, right? So those things are a lot easier to do now than they were previously. So lining up what those priorities are and really being honest with yourself with what is the amount of effort I want to put into this to get this reward will help you determine perhaps where to start.
That's perfect, because it seems, if someone is kind of seeing it as a daunting task or whatever, it's pretty simple, right? Like, just start there and then you can move forward however works for you. So finally, I just want to ask you a little bit about some of the changes you would like to see within your industry, which is obviously HR, and kind of, what kind of steps could we take as a society to ensure that, women's achievements are still celebrated and leadership is kind of still celebrated, and that type of thing?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, as I mentioned earlier on, if we, think about history just briefly, there are some things within our society that are systemic, right? Which, people will tend to have certain defaults, that's either built into their systems or their thoughts through a number of different places. So we have to have awareness that is a factor, right? That those things come into play, people's previous experiences, so on and so forth. And then I think things are gradually starting to shift. But I think what organizations and leaders can do that's, very tangible is just having those platforms and processes and programs in place to help highlight that recognition for the various successful people that they've got within the organization, right? So, whether it's, a monthly employee award or something along those lines, just having that structure in place can help to create the platform to acknowledge those individuals. So I think that's something that can be started with, and it will, gradually grow over time.
Well, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us. It was so great to learn more about you and your industry, and congratulations on being named a top 50 women leader in Toronto for 2023.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for tuning in with the Difference Makers. If you want to hear more about the ins and outs of the security industry from real professionals, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share. Also, check out new episodes on the first Tuesday of every month. Till next time.